it's Ian from RTO here. Welcome to Thursday on the channel, and Thursday always means it's Battle of the Debuts, where we take two debut albums from two great bands, pull them apart, I say my bit, and then you disagree with me, which is always fun. I do love this show, because 9 times out of 10 you disagree with me, which is fair enough. I don't mind that. And today I've gone with two bands that have made loads of records between them, and they both had one guitar, the same guitarist in their band at some time. And it's two bands that I've seen, and I've actually seen both bands on the same bill. And the bands we're talking about are UFO and Scorpions. Now, I saw them on the same bill at the Nebworth Fair in 1985. It was Deep Purple's first concert in this country since 1976, and they were on supporting along with Meatloaf as well, Mama's Boys, Blackfoot, Mountain, Alaska. We had some great bands that day, and it peed the rain all day. I got covered in mud, but it didn't stop a great day of music. So, first up today are UFO. They were formed in 1968 by Phil Mogg. There's been loads of changes in the time. Michael Schenker came in, came out, come back, and they've sort of retired now. A career that spans over 50 years and 22 studio albums. Great band. Saw them a couple of times, and I really enjoy their music still to this day. Yeah, go and check out. I've done a short on Lights Out, so go and check that out. So, first up today then is UFO. Now, their debut album is just called UFO 1. And it was released in 1970. And the band at the time were Phil Mogg, of course, on vocals, guitars, Mick Bolton, on the bass, the legendary and the late Mr. Pete Way, and drums, of course, Andy Parker. It was produced by Guy Fletcher, Judge Fletch, and Milton Samuel. So let's have a look. First track on here is actually called Unidentified Flying Object. It's an instrumental. It's got some great guitars here from Mick Bolton. It's actually nice. I quite like that track. Then we have a track called Boogie for George. Mick Bolton is a really good guitar player, and he's got some great little twiddly bits on this, I'll call them. And of course it's got a fantastic bass line from Pete Way. A great bass player. I did have the fortune of seeing Pete Way, not when he was with Fastway, so a great bass player. Then we get a cover of Eddie Cochran's Come On Everybody. I really don't like their UFO's version of it. It was big in their set in the early days. It's not my thing. I prefer Eddie's, I'm afraid. Shake It About. Great bass line again from Pete Way. Some great sterling guitar work from Mick Bolton. And it's Phil Mogg sounds pretty good. And then we get another cover, and this is Come Away Melinda. Now, it's not a patch on the Uriah Heep's version, or in fact Harry Belafonte, who sadly died recently. He's did the original. Now, if I'm going to listen to Come Away Melinda, it's going to be Uriah Heep's version for me. Then we get a track called Timothy, a good rocker. Got great bass line again that's dominated from Pete Way. Great vocal from Phil, even at that young age. Follow You Home, stunning guitar work from Mick Bolton. Absolutely top draw. Love that track. Treacle People, it's alright. Nothing special for me, that one. Then we get the Bo Diddley cover of Who Do You Love? Basically it's Andy Parker doing some drums and a bit of a guitar solo. Evil, this is quite experimental, that space rock sort of thing. Yeah, it was a bit out there, bit experimental for 1970. So what do I think of this album? It's a half decent album. It's one of the UFO albums that I tend to not to play as much as, say, Lights Out or Phenomenon. You know, that sort of misdemeanors and things like that. There is some really good bass work though from Pete Way, and I think Mick Bolton's very underrated guitar work. You could see the potential this band was going to have if it was still a little bit experimental. Didn't chart. Not much written. There's nothing written about it. But when you talk to other UFO fans and you say, what do you think of the debut album? They go, it's alright, but I don't play it as much as some of the others. So you know, I'm not the only one that thinks that. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of UFO 1. Song quality. There are some good songs on here. A couple of covers. Some spaced out stuff on there as well. But the good rockers are good. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. Production. It's 1970. It's raw. It's okay. It hasn't. I don't think this album sort of stood the test of time. I have heard a remastered version of it, and all I thought it did was make it even sound worse. At least with the original sound, it's raw. It's okay. So I'm going to give production a 3 out of 5 on that one. Reception, well, it's sunk without a trace. Their first 2 albums didn't do much at all. It wasn't until Phenomenon came along and it's sort of Doctor that put them on the map. So I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. Cover design, it's a little bit shabby in it. I think I could do a better job. It's not been put together, it's been thrown together. I get the idea of the space rock because that's what they were into, but you know, it's got the faces and the things, but it's not brilliant. So I'm going to give that a 2 out of 10. So for UFO and UFO 1 gives us a grand total of 11 out of 20. So let's move on then to the Scorpions, of course, formed in Germany, in West Germany, in Hanover in 1965 by Rudolf Schenker and of course they've been on to be a big band, sold millions of albums. Their successful lineup was from 78 to 92. They're still going today. Their last album, Rock Believer, was a great return to form. It's a fantastic album, which I love listening to. So, their debut album is called Lonesome Crow. And it was soon recorded after the Scorpions had become a fully professional band. And it was released in 1972 in West Germany as a soundtrack to the German anti-drug movie Das Cloud-Paradies. And it was the only band that featured a very young 16-year-old guitarist called Michael Schenker. So the lineup for the Scorpions on the debut album was Klaus Meine, of course, on vocals, Rudolf Schenker on the rhythm guitars, Michael Schenker on the lead guitar, Wolfgang Dunzi on the drums, and Lothar Hemmingberg on bass guitar. The album was produced by Connie Blank and Willem Mackey. Side 1, first track, I'm Goin Mad, an absolute classic of early Scorpions. And you've got this 16-year-old shredding like he's Tony Iommi. Already. It's great. There's some great riffs on this. You know, you got Rudolph with his distinctive rhythm, and then Michael comes on top and at 16 is putting killer bits on it. Absolutely great track. It All Depends, a really strong track. Great vocal from Klaus. Now this guy, he's still singing as good as ever. Okay, a few octaves lower, he's getting older, but it's a really good, and the guitar work from both Rudolph and Michael on this is terrific. Leave Me comes next. Sometimes you forget that this is Klaus singing. Got a great voice. When he was younger, he was even higher, and this is quite mellow, and it's a bit of space rock as well. Pretty good. Then we get In the Search of Peace of Mind. Love the beginning of this. There's a nice little interplay between Rudolph and Michael. It's got some really nice harmonies. The bass line, whoa, what a bass line this is. From Lothar Hemmingberg. Really drives the song along. It's got them elements of what that early Scorpion sound. Then we get Inheritance, absolute killer guitar solo from Michael. You forget this is a 16-year-old playing on this. He's just unbelievable. Such a good solo. Action comes next. My favourite track on here. This is quite the jazzy drums here are really good. You know, a great bass line from Lothar. And again, the guitar work, it's an absolute brilliant track, my favourite. Then we get the title track, Lonesome Crow. This is quite long, this is 13 minutes long. It's got elements of just ordinary rock, space rock, psychedelia. But the thing about it is the guitar work all the way through from Michael Schenker. There are little bits. I think it's just a wee bit too long, by about 2 minutes. Although Schenker's Michael is brilliant on this, there are too much of his fiddling about. I think it'd have been a bit better song, but I could see where they were going with it. It was very ambitious for them, but yeah, it's not too bad. So what do I think of this album? I always said that this is a very underrated Scorpions album. I love it because it's got this young, dynamic guitarist, Michael Schenker, who I love. All his stuff, from UFO to his solo stuff. You know, and he just set the world on fire. And I think it's got some great tracks on here that everybody should go and listen to. If you've not listened to this album, go and listen to it, because it's an amazing album. But I know a lot of Scorpion fans, true fans, like it. So if you're a part-time fan and you've never listened to this, go and give it a listen. So once again, not much in the reviews, but I did find a professional ratings. All My Music gave it a 2, and Force Parallels gave it a 3. Didn't chart. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of this one. So song quality, there's some great songs on here, and when you listen to it on the live album, that very first live album, there's some songs, it's great. These songs are raw, raunchy. So I'm going to give song quality a 4 out of 5. Productions, great production. for 1972. I like the rawness of it. Again, it's what I call the plug-in and go rock, and there's nothing wrong with plug-in and go rock. So I'm going to give that a 4 out of 5. Reception, again, it sank without a trace. But I know over the years people have brought it, and I love the album. I like listening to this album, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Cover design, I get it, it's got a scorpion on, but the hand, what's that got to do? You know, Lonesome Crow. Couldn't we have had a crow on it or something? It's a distinctive cover, but I don't get the hand. I get the scorpion, but I don't get the hand. It's quite distinctive though, so I'm going to give that a 3 out of 5. So for Lonesome Crow by the Scorpions gives us a grand total of 14 out of 20. So definitely on points, it's a win for Scorpions. So which one is my favourite? Well, in all honesty, I tend to play Lonesome Crow more than UFO 1. As I said, the first 2 UFO albums are quite experimental, with a few covers thrown in, and the second album's even more hoopy than their first. It wasn't until Phenomenon that they really started cranking it out and the good stuff. But with the Scorpions, even after when Michael Schenker left to join UFO, I mean, who did they bring in? Hewley John Roth, who's a fabulous guitarist, and I'm going to give it to the Scorpions today because I think it's a great album. As much as I like UFO, I love these 2 bands, 2 of my favourite bands growing up. It is the Scorpions for me. Okay, you know the drill now. If you agree with me, have a vote to be in the community, or just put it in the bottom, or there'll be the poll tonight on the live stream, and we'll try not cock it up tonight. I don't know what happened last week. Okay, also I'll mention I had to take down the original Curved Air this week because I always watch it through, and there were some funny things going on. I don't know what was going on. There was interference, and it didn't look right. So I took it down, and because I've still got the original, had a look at it, cleaned it up as much as I could, and I've put it out again. So it is out there. Okay, I'll be back later with a pick and mix, and we're going to look at the top 10 singles here in the UK. For this day in 1986, so join me for that later. Bye for now.